Tuesday morning, 6:47 a.m. The sun barely cracking through the Indiana clouds, and I'm already loading mulch bags into the back of our F-250, the smell of fresh-cut grass and diesel fuel mixing in the cool air. This was the life I'd built with my brothers. Not blood brothers, business brothers. Jake and Marcus. We called ourselves Three Kings Landscaping. Corny name, sure, but it meant something to us. Three guys from the same neighborhood, same high school, same dream of not working for somebody else our whole lives. We started this company 4 years ago with one used mower, a Craigslist trailer, and a Costco membership for bulk equipment. Jake was the talker, smooth with clients, always knew what to say to land the contract. 6'2", CrossFit obsessed, the kind of guy who could sell ice to Eskimos. He handled sales and client relations while I sweated in the dirt making his promises come true. Marcus, numbers guy, quiet, calculated, always 3 steps ahead in his head. He managed the books, handled invoices, dealt with suppliers, wore reading glasses even though he was only 29. We used to joke he was the only landscaper in America who preferred Excel to a chainsaw. Me, I was the operator, the one who actually knew how to lay sod, trim hedges, install irrigation systems. My hands were always cut up, dirt permanently under my nails. I didn't mind. I loved the work, transforming some overgrown disaster into something beautiful. There's something pure about that. The three of us split everything equally, 33.3% ownership each. Partners, brothers, or so I thought. That morning, loading mulch, I had no idea it was all about to crumble. The golden days, when we were actually kings. Flashback to 2 years earlier, summer of 2023. We'd just landed our biggest contract, a subdivision development, 42 houses needing full landscaping. The developer wanted native prairie grasses, stone pathways, the whole upscale Midwest aesthetic. I remember the three of us sitting in Marcus's living room, pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, beers sweating in our hands. Jake raised his bottle high. To Three Kings, baby. We're actually doing this. Marcus grinned, pushed his glasses up. If we don't screw it up, we won't, I said. And I believed it. We've got each other's backs. That phrase echoed between us like a promise. We've got each other's backs. Back then, we worked 70-hour weeks and loved every minute. Jake would be on-site smooth-talking homeowners while I directed our crew of part-timers. Marcus stayed in the office, making sure invoices went out, supplies came in, and we stayed profitable. Friday nights, we'd hit up this dive bar called Rusty's. Cheap wings, cheaper beer, the kind of place where the bartender knew your name and your order. We'd sit in our usual booth, dirt still under our nails, laughing about the nightmare client who wanted their lawn Instagram perfect, or the time our mower got stuck in a koi pond. Those were the golden days. Looking back now, I see the cracks I missed. The way Jake's eyes would linger on his phone during our meetings. The way Marcus started asking me detailed questions about which clients I'd built personal relationships with. Little things. Invisible things. Until they weren't invisible anymore. It started in early March. Still cold mud season. The weird in-between time before spring contracts kicked in heavy. I walked into our shared office, really just a converted garage we rented for $800 a month, and found the door to Marcus's desk area closed. Not locked, just closed. Marcus never closed that door. He was the open door policy guy, always said transparency built trust. But that morning, 8:15 a.m., door shut tight. I knocked. Yo, Marcus. You in there. Shuffling sounds, papers rustling, then his voice, slightly strained. Yeah, 1 second. The door opened. He looked off. Eyes a little too wide, smile a little too quick. What's up, man? Just wanted to go over the Mueller contract. They want to add a water feature. Cool. Email me the details. I'm slammed right now. He angled his body to block my view of his desk. I caught a glimpse of his laptop screen before he casually reached back and closed it. Not suspicious at all. You good? I asked. Yeah, just tax stuff. Boring accounting crap. I nodded, let it go. But something sat wrong in my stomach. The patterns start to emerge. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. Small things that didn't make sense until I lined them up like dominoes. Jake and Marcus taking lunch meetings together. Without me. Oh, we just grabbed Subway real quick, Jake would say. Too casual. Didn't think you'd want to leave the site. New inside jokes I wasn't part of. references to conversations I hadn't been in. Marcus asking me to update our client contact spreadsheet with detailed notes, who I talked to most, who trusted me specifically, who might be looking for additional services. At the time, I thought he was just being thorough. Building our CRM, he called it. Then there was the Thursday I came back to the office early. Usually, I'd be on site until 5, but a client canceled last minute. I pulled into the parking lot at 2:30 p.m. and saw Jake's truck and Marcus's sedan both there. Normal, right? Except when I walked in, they were huddled over Marcus's laptop in a corner of the office we rarely used. The second the door creaked, both their heads snapped up. Marcus's hand slammed the laptop shut so fast it was almost comical. "Hey," Jake said, voice too loud. "Thought you were at the Morrison job? Cancelled. What are you guys working on?" "Just pricing out some new equipment," Marcus said. But his voice had that pitch. That lying pitch. I knew that pitch because I'd heard it before. In high school, when Jake told his mom he didn't know where her car was while we were literally parked 2 blocks away at a party. "Cool," I said slowly. "Need my input?" "Nah, we got it," Jake said, already standing, moving toward me like a border collie herding me toward the door. "Actually, you mind swinging by Home Depot? We need more landscape fabric for tomorrow." They were getting me out of the office. I felt it in my bones. I grabbed the keys, played along. "Sure, text me if you need anything else." As I walked to my truck, I glanced back through the office window. They were already back at that laptop, heads together, talking fast. The discovery, the paperwork doesn't lie. It happened on a Wednesday morning, April 17th. I'll never forget the date. I came into the office at 6:30 a.m., earlier than usual because I wanted to prep equipment before a big job. The place was empty, silent except for the hum of Marcus's ancient space heater. I set my coffee on my desk, booted up my laptop. While it loaded, I walked over to the printer to grab some contracts I'd sent the night before. That's when I saw it. Papers sitting in the output tray. But not my contracts. Something else. Articles of incorporation. State of Indiana filing documents. For a company called Elite Grounds LLC. My hands went cold. I picked up the stack, maybe 8 pages. The first page had all 3 of our names listed as initial organizers. But then, on page 3, there was an amendment, dated 2 weeks ago, removing my name, replacing me with someone named David Chen, a supplier we'd worked with before. My heart started pounding, that sick thud in your chest when reality shifts sideways. I kept reading. There were client lists. Our clients. Copied directly from the spreadsheet Marcus had me update. Notes in the margins about contract end dates, renewal periods. There was a timeline. Finalize LLC by May 1st. Begin client outreach May 15th. Dissolve 3 Kings by June 30th. They were planning to leave me. Not just leave, bury me. The next document was even worse. A draft email to our clients. "Hi, client name. This is Jake from 3 Kings Landscaping. We wanted to inform you that we're transitioning to a new company, Elite Grounds LLC, to better serve your needs. Marcus and I will continue to provide the same high-quality service you've come to expect. Unfortunately, my name will not be continuing with the business due to personal commitments, but rest assured you're in excellent hands." Personal commitments. Like I was choosing to walk away. The last page was a dissolution agreement for 3 Kings. It outlined how they'd split the remaining assets, equipment, client contracts, everything, between the 2 of them, and how they'd saddle me with the outstanding debt. We owed $18,000 to suppliers and had a $25,000 equipment loan. According to this document, as the exiting partner, I'd be responsible for my third of the debt but receive 0 equipment, 0 client list, 0 revenue. They were robbing me, in broad daylight, with legal paperwork. I stood there in that cold office, papers shaking in my hands, and felt something crack open in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just this cold, clean clarity. They'd calculated this, planned it. While I was out in the mud making their promises real, they were plotting my funeral. I could have stormed into Jake's house right then, could have sent a group text calling them out, could have posted the documents on social media for everyone to see what kind of snakes they were. But that's not power, that's just noise. I stood in that empty office, documents in my hand, and made a different choice. Silence. I pulled out my phone and photographed every single page, every email draft, every timeline, every client list. I created a folder labeled Insurance, and backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Then I put the papers back in the printer tray, exactly how I found them. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and started my day like nothing happened. When Jake rolled in at 8:30 a.m., I was reviewing equipment manifests. "Morning," he said, all smiles. "Morning," I replied, steady, calm. When Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, I even made small talk about the Pacers game. They had no idea I knew, and I was going to keep it that way. The 3-month countdown begins. That night, I sat in my apartment with a legal pad and sketched out my own timeline. They planned to execute their betrayal by June 30th. Today was April 17th. I had about 10 weeks. 10 weeks to document everything. 10 weeks to quietly move my equipment. 10 weeks to secure the clients who actually mattered. 10 weeks to build an exit so clean they wouldn't see it coming until I was already gone. First step, lawyer up. I found an attorney through a college buddy who worked in business law. Name was Patricia Chen, no relation to the David Chen in their paperwork, funny enough. Late 40s, sharp as a blade, the kind of woman who looked at you over reading glasses like she was already 3 moves ahead. I showed her the documents. She studied them for 20 minutes in silence, occasionally making notes. Finally, she looked up. "This is bold. Stupid but bold. What can I do?" "Plenty. But first question, do you want to fight for 3 kings, or do you want to burn it down and start fresh?" I thought about that, about the name we'd chosen together, the logo Jake's girlfriend designed, the years of sweat. Then I thought about them huddled over that laptop, hiding screens, crafting lies. "Burn it," I said, "but controlled. I want them left with ashes, and I want to walk away clean." Patricia smiled. "Not warm, tactical. I can work with that." The documentation phase. For the next 6 weeks, I became a ghost in my own company. I showed up early, left late, smiled at the right times, but every spare moment, I was gathering evidence. I logged every client interaction, which jobs I personally managed, which relationships I'd built, who trusted me specifically. Turns out, most of our high-value clients worked directly with me, not Jake's smooth talk, not Marcus's invoices. Me. Mrs. Kowalski, who'd referred us to 5 of her neighbors after I spent 3 hours fixing her rose garden for free when she couldn't afford it. The Hendersons, who called me directly whenever they needed landscape advice because I'd shown their kid how to identify native plants. Riverside Community Church, whose grounds I'd maintained personally for 2 years, often throwing in extra work without billing because, honestly, it felt good. These weren't just clients. They were relationships. And Jake and Marcus had zero connection to them. I started creating duplicate records, my own spreadsheet, my own contact list, backed up outside our shared systems. I noted contract end dates, renewal clauses, payment histories. Then I started quietly, casually mentioning to these clients that I was exploring some new business opportunities. "Really?" Mrs. Kowalski said, pruning shears in hand. "You thinking of going solo?" I shrugged, kept it vague. "Maybe, just exploring options. But hey, if anything changes, I'll let you know. I'd hate to lose touch." "Oh, honey, you let me know. I'd follow you anywhere. You actually care about the work." One by one, I planted seeds, never bad-mouthing 3 kings, never making it dramatic, just opening doors. The equipment strategy. Here's something Jake and Marcus didn't think about. Most of our best equipment was technically mine. When we started the company, we each contributed whatever tools we had. I'd been landscaping since high school. My dad taught me, so I had a solid collection. A commercial-grade Toro mower, a steel chainsaw, a nearly new edger, hand tools that had been in my family for years. We'd bought new equipment together as the company grew, sure, but my original stuff? Still mine. I had receipts, registration papers, photos from before 3 Kings even existed. Late nights after they left the office, I started quietly moving my equipment out. Nothing obvious, nothing they'd miss immediately, but piece by piece, I relocated my tools to a storage unit I rented across town. $120 a month, climate-controlled, mine. I replaced a few items with cheaper versions so the gaps weren't obvious. Swapped my professional chainsaw for a basic model. Took my good mower, left an older backup. By mid-May, I'd quietly extracted about $8,000 worth of equipment that was legally, provably mine. And they had no idea. The client migration. This was the delicate part. I couldn't openly poach. That would give them ammunition, maybe even legal grounds to come after me. but I could facilitate transitions. I started offering personal consultations to my key clients, free advice on seasonal planning, pest management, soil health, stuff that went beyond our standard contracts. During these consultations, I'd casually mention, I'm probably going to branch out soon, start my own operation. Would you be interested in a more personalized service? 9 times out of 10, the answer was yes. I drafted new contracts. Simple, straightforward, competitive pricing. Nothing fancy, just me promising to do the work they already knew I did. By the end of May, I had signed agreements with 12 of our best clients. Not active yet, they'd trigger after their current Three Kings contracts expired, but they were locked in. Contracts that would represent about 60% of our annual revenue. Jake and Marcus thought they were stealing the client list. They had no idea the clients had already chosen sides. The financial chess move. Here's where Patricia earned every dollar I paid her. Our LLC operating agreement had a clause neither Jake nor Marcus had bothered to read carefully. It stated that any partner could initiate dissolution with 30 days written notice. The remaining partners could buy out the exiting partner at fair market value, or accept dissolution. Patricia helped me draft a letter, not emotional, not accusatory, just legal. Pursuant to Section 7.3 of the Three Kings Landscaping LLC operating agreement, I hereby provide 30 days notice of my intent to exit the partnership. I request either buyout of my ownership stake at fair market value, or mutual dissolution of the LLC. I had it notarized. I had it ready, but I didn't send it yet. The timing had to be perfect. June 22nd, 8 days before their planned dissolution date. I walked into the office at 6 a.m., earlier than either of them ever showed up. I had one copy of my dissolution notice in a manila envelope, another in my bag as backup, and a third already emailed to Patricia. I left the envelope on Marcus's desk, right on top of his keyboard where he couldn't miss it. Then I started packing my personal items. Photos, coffee mug, a jacket I kept on the back of my chair. I worked methodically, filling a cardboard box. Jake arrived at 8 o'clock. Yo, what are you doing? Moving some stuff, I said. Calm, almost bored. Moving? Why? I just looked at him, let the silence hang. Marcus came in 10 minutes later, saw the envelope, picked it up. I watched his face drain of color as he read. What the hell is this? I turned to face both of them. It's exactly what it says. I'm exiting the partnership. You can't just. Jake started. I can. Section 7.3. You have 30 days to buy me out at fair market value, or we mutually dissolve. Marcus's jaw worked. This is insane. We had plans. We were going to. Going to what, Marcus? I kept my voice level cold. Finish that sentence. He stopped, looked at Jake. The silence between them was louder than any confession. I picked up my box. You have 30 days. Talk to your lawyers. I'll talk to mine. As I walked toward the door, Jake grabbed my arm. Dude, what is this really about? I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back up at his face. Let go. He did. This is about me choosing to leave before you chose to throw me out. Check the printer tray from April 17th. I'm guessing you saved some drafts. I watched the color drain from Jake's face too. Yeah, I said. I know. I've always known. I walked out into the June sunshine, box in my arms, and didn't look back. The 30-day scramble. What happened next was predictable chaos. They scrambled, called emergency meetings with lawyers, tried to find loopholes in the operating agreement, realized, too late, that they'd signed a document neither of them actually understood. Their options were limited. Buy me out, they didn't have the cash. Mutually dissolve, which meant losing the business name, the LLC, everything. Fight me in court, expensive, time-consuming, and I had documentation of their betrayal. Meanwhile, I was already in motion. I filed my own LLC, Grounded Landscapes. Simple name. Professional website thrown together in a weekend. Business cards ordered online. I sent formal letters to my 12 secured clients, informing them that their current Three Kings contracts would end as scheduled, and offering seamless transition to Grounded Landscapes. All 12 signed. I finalized a small business loan, $30K to cover startup costs, new equipment, insurance, operating expenses. The loan officer loved my business plan, loved that I already had contracts signed. By day 15, I was operational. By day 20, I had my first 3 jobs completed under the new company name. Jake called me once during this period. I let it go to voicemail. Dude, we need to talk. Can we sit down and work this out? I deleted the message. On day 30, July 22nd, we met one final time. Patricia's office. Neutral ground. Jake and Marcus sat across the conference table with their lawyer, a guy who looked fresh out of law school and completely out of his depth. My lawyer slid papers across the table. Mutual dissolution agreement. Three Kings Landscaping LLC will be dissolved. All debts will be settled according to ownership percentage. All equipment will be distributed based on original ownership documentation. Equipment, Marcus said. What equipment? I smiled. The equipment I brought into this partnership. I have receipts. It's legally mine. I already removed it. That's half our fleet. Jake's voice rose. No, I said calmly. It's my fleet that I graciously let you use. Read the receipts. Their lawyer skimmed the documentation, then whispered something to them. Jake's face went red. And the clients? Marcus asked quietly. What about them? You're taking them. They chose to work with me. I didn't breach any non-compete. We don't have one. I didn't poach during active contracts. I simply offered my services, and they accepted. Patricia added, all perfectly legal. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then Marcus said, voice barely above a whisper, you knew, the whole time. Since April 17th, I confirmed, when you accidentally left your Elite Grounds paperwork in the printer. Jake's head dropped into his hands. You want to know the crazy part? I leaned forward. If you'd just talked to me, if you'd said, hey, we want to take the business in a different direction, or even, this partnership isn't working, we could have split amicably. I would have walked away, wished you well, maybe even referred clients. I let that sit. But you chose to betray me. You chose to plan my destruction in secret. You chose to saddle me with debt while you walked away with everything. We were scared, Jake started. I don't care. I cut him off. Sign the papers. Three Kings is dead. You killed it. They signed. The first year, Grounded Landscapes takes root. The landscaping business is built on reputation, word of mouth, consistency. I had all three. By August I had 20 clients. By September, 35. By the end of year one I was operating at 150% of what Three Kings had done at its peak. Turns out, when you actually care about the work, when you show up on time, when you listen to what clients want, when you treat their property like it matters, people notice. Mrs. Kowalski referred me to her entire book club. The Hendersons put my sign in their yard. Riverside Community Church not only renewed but expanded my contract to include their entire campus. I hired a small crew, 2 guys both younger than me, both hungry to learn. I paid them better than industry standard because I remembered what it felt like to be underpaid and undervalued. The business grew. Not explosively but steadily, sustainable, real. I moved out of my cramped apartment into a small house with a garage I could use for equipment storage. Nothing fancy but mine. My body changed too. 8-hour days doing physical labor, eating better because I couldn't afford to waste time being sick, sleeping hard because I was too exhausted for insomnia. I dropped 20 pounds, got lean, strong, tanned from working outside. Started hitting the gym at 5 a.m. before jobs because I had energy to burn. One morning, I caught my reflection in the window of my truck. Didn't recognize myself for a second. Shoulders broader, jaw sharper, eyes clearer. I thought about the guy who used to sit in that shared office, trusting his partners, believing in brotherhood. That guy was gone. The social media crossover. I wasn't big on posting online, but my clients were. Mrs. Kowalski posted a before and after photo of her front yard transformation, tagged Grounded Landscapes, captioned it, when you work with someone who genuinely cares. The Hendersons posted a video of their kid identifying native plants, skills I'd taught him, with me in the background, laughing. Riverside Church did a feature in their newsletter about the dedicated professional who treats God's earth with respect. I didn't post much myself, but I didn't need to. My work was my marketing. And of course, Jake and Marcus saw it, because social media is a small, cruel world. Elite Grounds spectacular failure. I heard through the grapevine, landscapers talk, industry's tight, that Elite Grounds launched in August, 2 months after Three Kings dissolved. They had a fancy website, professional branding, big promises. But here's the thing about landscaping, you can't fake the work. Jake could sell, but he couldn't execute. Marcus could manage numbers, but he couldn't operate equipment. They'd relied on me for the actual skilled labor, and now I was gone. They hired contractors, cheap labor, guys who showed up late, did sloppy work, cut corners. Clients complained. Online reviews tanked. One particularly brutal review said, "They promised Three Kings quality but delivered clown show chaos." By November, I heard Elite Grounds was struggling to pay suppliers. By February of the following year, they dissolved. 18 months. That's how long they lasted. I felt nothing when I heard. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Just nothing. They'd made their choice. The market made its verdict. The reconnection attempts, ghosts knocking. It started with a LinkedIn message. "Jake, hey man, long time, hope you're doing well. Would love to grab coffee sometime and catch up." I read it twice, then archived it without responding. A week later, Marcus sent a text. "Saw your post from the Henderson job. Looks great. Miss working with you, dude. Miss working with you." Like we'd had some amicable parting instead of a betrayal. I blocked the number. Then came the attempt I didn't expect. A mutual friend, guy named Devin who'd gone to high school with all three of us, called me on a Saturday. "Hey, so Jake asked me to reach out. Devin, I love you but don't. Just hear me out. No, whatever he wants, whatever he's selling, I'm not interested. He's struggling, man. They both are." Elite Grounds folded. Jake's back working for True Green, and Marcus is doing bookkeeping for his uncle. They feel terrible about what went down. I pulled my truck over to the side of the road, took a breath. "Devin, they didn't feel terrible when they planned to rob me. They felt terrible when it blew up in their faces. There's a difference." Silence on his end. They made their choice. I'm not their safety net. I'm not their second chance. I'm just done. "Man, that's cold." "No," I said. "Cold is plotting someone's destruction behind their back. I'm just protecting my peace." I hung up. Devin didn't call again. The clarity of distance. 2 years after the dissolution, I was sitting in my truck outside a job site, eating a sandwich, when I got a notification. Jake had tagged me in a Facebook post. Some throwback photo from 2022, the three of us covered in mud after finishing the subdivision project, arms around each other, smiling. His caption, "Miss the good old days." At Marcus at my name. I stared at that photo, remembered that day, the exhaustion, the pride, the brotherhood I'd felt. Then I remembered the paperwork, the secret company, the plan to leave me with nothing. I untagged myself and blocked him, because here's the truth they never understood. Nostalgia is not the same as trust. A good memory doesn't erase a bad betrayal. You don't get to destroy someone and then ask them to remember when things were good. The philosophy, revenge is a life well lived. 3 years in, Grounded Landscapes is thriving. 42 regular clients. A crew of 5. Revenue that would make my 27-year-old self weep with disbelief. I bought my first brand new truck, a Ford F-350, crew cab, hunter green with my company logo on the side. When I drove it off the lot, I thought about the rusted Tacoma I'd been driving when Three Kings started. I thought about Jake and Marcus. Wondered if they'd seen my truck around town. Wondered if it stung. Then I stopped wondering, because they're not part of my story anymore. People ask me sometimes, "Don't you want revenge?" I smile. I got it. You didn't do anything to them though. Exactly. I didn't waste a single breath on destroying them. I just built something better. The best revenge isn't tearing someone down. It's rising so high they can't even see you anymore. The life I have now, the business, the peace, the pride in my work, none of it came from hurting them. It came from choosing myself, from cutting off the rot and growing something healthy in its place. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's just waking up every morning knowing you bet on yourself and won. The final encounter, proof of distance. It happened at a supplier warehouse. I was picking up a pallet of pavers when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Hey, it's been a while." I turned. Marcus, thinner than I remembered. Glasses still crooked. Tired eyes. For a second neither of us spoke. "How've you been?" he asked. "Good. You?" "All right. Working for my uncle now. Bookkeeping." "Cool." The silence stretched. Uncomfortable. Heavy. "Look, I just want to say we messed up. What we did to you. It was wrong." I looked at him. Really looked. Tried to find anger, resentment, anything. Found nothing. "Yeah," I said. "It was. Is there any chance? No, I didn't let him finish. Not harsh, just clear. There's no going back, Marcus. You guys taught me an important lesson. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal. It just ends. We were stupid, scared, maybe, but that doesn't change what you did. I picked up my receipt, started to leave. I'm sorry, he called after me. I stopped, turned back one last time. I know you are, and I hope you learned from it. I hope you never do that to someone else. But me, I'm good. I don't need the apology. I already moved on. I walked out into the sunlight, loaded my pavers, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, Marcus was still standing there. I didn't look back again. 5 years after Three Kings died, I'm sitting on the porch of my house. A real house now, 3 bedrooms, decent yard, watching the sunset paint the Midwest sky orange and purple. My phone buzzes. A client thanking me for the work we did on their backyard. 5 stars. Another referral incoming. I think about the guy I was at 27. The one who believed that splitting everything equally meant everyone cared equally. The one who thought brotherhood was built on words instead of actions. That guy's gone, buried under years of sweat, discipline, and the cold clarity that comes from betrayal. But here's the thing nobody tells you about betrayal. It's a gift, not in the moment. In the moment, it's a knife in the back. But later, when the blood stops and the wound scars over, you realize what it gave you. Clarity, boundaries, the understanding that you don't owe loyalty to people who wouldn't give it back. Jake and Marcus thought they were robbing me. They thought they were winning. They didn't realize they were setting me free. Free from a partnership that was built on inequality. Free from carrying people who didn't carry me back. Free from the illusion that shared history means shared values. The business I built alone is stronger than anything we built together. Because it's built on truth, on skill, on the simple promise that I show up and I do the work. No betrayal, no hidden agendas. Just dirt, sweat, and integrity. So here's what I learned, and what I'd tell anyone going through their own business betrayal, their own blind side. Revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It's waking up every day and building something they can't touch. It's refusing to let their betrayal define your worth. It's choosing silence over confrontation, not because you're weak, but because you're done giving them your energy. It's blocking their calls, not out of pettiness, but out of self-preservation. It's succeeding not at them, but despite them. They wanted me to fail. They bet on my collapse. They planned for my destruction. And I simply didn't give them that satisfaction. I took my tools, my skills, my relationships, and I built something better. Not to prove them wrong. I don't need their validation. But to prove myself right. To prove that I didn't need them. That I never did. The best revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. It's making them irrelevant. So if this story hit you, if you've been betrayed by someone you trusted, remember, your power isn't in destroying them. It's in building something so undeniable, so solid, so successful that when they finally look up from the ashes of their own choices, you're already gone, already thriving, already free. And that right there, that's the real revenge. Drop a like if this resonated. Subscribe for more stories about turning betrayal into breakthrough. And comment below, what did you build after someone tried to tear you down? Because every betrayal has consequences. And sometimes the consequence is that you become unstoppable.